Greetings, I'm Zachary Hepner. I'm pleased to share this Dvar Torah with you for Parashat Tetazveh. Let's start with a trivia question. Name a mitzvah that's impossible to fulfill without knowledge of the book of Genesis. What information in sefer Bereshit is required to fulfill this mitzvah properly or at all? Remember the play, Romeo and Juliet? Juliet, in her polemic against Romeo being called a Montague by name, but not in spirit, she says in Act 2, Scene 2, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose, by any other name would smell as sweet. Without that title, Romeo, doff thy name. And for that name, which is no part of thee, take all myself." Romeo replies, "I take thee at thy word, call me but love. I'll be new baptized, henceforth I never will be Romeo." Shakespeare has Juliet claim there is nothing intrinsic in the name. The context of a person is intrinsic, and the name is only an avatar or a hyperlink that refers to the intrinsic nature of the object. Not so with the Torah. 12 sons of Jacob there are, and 12 tribes too. Sometimes neither Levi nor Joseph is a tribe, and they're replaced with Ephraim and Manasseh. Sometimes Levi and Joseph are tribes, or just the sons of Jacob. The tribes are organized and split in one order on Har Gerizim and Har Eval. They are in a different order on the Choshen and breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. They are again in yet another different order on the Kohen Gadol's 2 lazuli gemstones in the ephod shoulder strap. Regarding the ephod, the Torah explicitly states, "Shisha mishmotam al ha'even ha'echat, ve'et shemot ha'shisha ha'notarim al ha'even ha'shenit katodotam." 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the remaining 6 on the other stone, in the order of their birth. Knowledge of Genesis 30, the narrative that contains the order of the birth of Jacob's sons, seems required in order to fulfill the mitzvah of the ephod. A counter-argument could have been that the birth order is common knowledge. One doesn't need to wait until dawn to know whether the sun will rise in the east or in the west, because it's common knowledge. Amar shomer ata boker v'gam laila. The watchman replied, "Morning came and so did night. If you would inquire, come back again." The watchman knows without any doubt or need of proof that the sun will rise yet again. Well, that counter-argument doesn't work in this case. Common knowledge of Jacob's son's birth order is insufficient data. The Torah demands a close reading of the text in Genesis if the Kohen Gadol is to properly fulfill the mitzvah of ephod. Midrash Yalkut Shimoni 397:5 teaches about the ephod. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. On the ephod, the name of Joseph is spelled with the letter Hey, as it is spelled in Edut Behosef Shemo in Tehillim. And Binyamin is spelled Malay with the Yod, even though the Torah typically omits the Yod as a vowel in the word Binyamin. For the ephod, Binyamin must be written in the way that his father had pronounced his name when he was born. This is referring to Genesis 35. Vayhi b'tzeit nafsha ki meta v'tikra shemo ben Omi v'aviv karelo Binyamin. Rachel called him Ben Oni, and his father called him Binyamin. If you're not asking the obvious question, let me ask it for you. Yalkut Shimoni teaches that Binyamin must be written in the way that his father had pronounced it in Genesis 35. Listen clearly. He is called Binyamin. His father called him Binyamin. Does that sound the same? Because it is. A listener is not capable of hearing any distinction whether the second yod before the nun is phonetically superfluous, which leads us to the answer to the trivia question. Close textual knowledge of Genesis 28 and Genesis 35 is indeed required in order to properly fulfill the mitzvah of the ephod. I know what you're thinking, but the Torah hadn't been given yet. No Genesis, no ephod. It would have been impossible to fulfill this mitzvah with these parameters. It's a good question. However, the answer is even simpler. The Torah is not an encyclopedia, nor is it a history book. The Torah is an ocean of a gift from the Almighty. The written Torah and oral Torah are not separate and distinct corpuses of texts and information. They are interconnected and entangled facets of Torah that are intertwined. The spelling of Binyamin on the ephod means that when Jacob gave Binyamin his name, he gave him the full name with the yod. Contemplate the contrast. Rachel calls him the son of my affliction, yet Jacob names him, God is my right hand. God had and always been with Jacob through the thick and the thin. God will be Binyamin's right hand through their thick and their thin. And Shevet Binyamin certainly went through a very narrow, straight bottleneck in the end of the book of Judges. So much has been written about how the tribes are split in Har Gerizim and Mount Eval, and the names on the Choshen breastplate, and how Joseph surprised his brothers by seating them in their birth order. Shakespeare's Juliet may not value the deeper significance in a name, though my father does observe that the preacher in Kohelet has already said, Tov Shem Mishemen Tov. A good name is better than good oil. While name in Kohelet here means reputation, it could also mean the name itself has intrinsic value. But with the ephod, we see that knowledge of the history is not necessary to fulfill the mitzvah of ephod. Rather, knowledge of sefer Bereshit is required. And sefer Bereshit is not a history book. It is a book about the now, which only happened to take place in the past. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.